Gareth, welcome. It's a real pleasure to have you here. So,
thanks for having me.
Everyone out there in Facebook land, this is Gareth Christopher, a new-ish friend. We've known each other now for about 2 years, 1.5 years.
Longer. Actually,
Longer than 2 years?
We're
not a newish friend.
We met at a Zacky's auction, probably for wine tasting and whiskey tasting a couple of times.
Okay. So we're starting something new called just in conversation with. Lots of stuff is going on in the whiskey world, and it can get a little bit confusing. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of product. There's a lot of way to get into whiskeys. You could simply buy a bottle. You could, buy single casks.
The word cask has been thrown around a lot in the last year or so, and it's such a hot topic. Everyone wants to buy a cask.
I get hyped whenever anybody tells me, like, oh, can you sell me a cask? I'm like, wait, hang on, right? So this whole concept of buying a cask is a lot more complicated than most people imagine.
Correct.
And of all the people that I know, this guy does it right. First of all, he's got a sick collection of single casks. So you can see my ears are turning red, and I'm feeling this whole swell of jealousy. But all kidding aside,
you were the first one to buy a cask. Let's be real there.
But Christopher knows, Gareth knows more about, I think, buying quality casks than anybody I know. There are a lot of companies that do it for commercial purposes. After all, whiskey is a business, and so you get a lot of emails, you get a lot of sales pitch. You end up buying a lot of casks which you don't know how to bottle. You get it bottled, you don't know how to ship it. You get it shipped, you don't know how to clear it.
There's a lot of hidden costs in buying a cask. It's not so simple and direct as, oh, I buy a cask, I get everything shipped with me within a few months. It's like, no, you have to figure out the bottling, you have to do the clearance duties, and
all the way from design onwards, right?
Design of the bottle, etc. So it's quite
okay. So let's try to break this down for them. All right?
Sure.
So let's. Okay. By the way, in case you're wondering why we have all of this stuff here, we actually met earlier. We had some other work going on, so we started drinking tequila, and then we're kind of like migrating to whiskey. I think I'm somewhere here, he's somewhere here.
Cheers.
Cheers. What are you drinking?
Whiskey.
Okay. Cheers. All right, let's start from ground zero. You wake up in the morning and say, you know what? I want to buy a cask. What do you do?
That is a hard question because the cask experiences I have is very different than normal people. So let's say, what do you do? I went for the highest end, which is Cask of Distinctions, which you already know of.
So Cask of Distinction is managed by
Diageo.
Diageo.
They own a collection of over 50 distilleries, and they have a few of my favorite distilleries. So the first thing I kind of fell in love with is Port Ellen. And then so I told them, like, if you can find me something similar to Port Ellen but not as expensive, that's something that would go for.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, you like Islay. So I'm a big Islay fan. Okay. So from that, I just started picking and choosing different Isleys. Right. And so for me, the first cask I actually wanted to buy was Lagavulin.
Now they're getting jealous out there.
But I couldn't get my hand on the Lagavulin. They're like, oh, Lagavulin casks are very hard to find. They're super rare, etc.
All right.
So for me, you would get in touch with the Diageo team.
So this would be out of Singapore, right?
Out of Singapore.
So you get in touch with Diageo out of Singapore.
Correct.
I believe they have another office in Europe as well.
Yes.
So, but for people like us, we would approach Diageo Singapore.
Correct.
Right. And you would have to make your intention known to them.
Mm-hmm.
So do they generally entertain anyone, or do you need someone to make an introduction?
You need someone to make an introduction. So I had Cam as an introduction, I'm an introduction, and they're very selective on who can get a cask. They only have maybe 10 casks a year. It's actually very limited.
Very limited, correct.
And you're usually on a wait list of some sort, and not everyone can, get a cask. Yeah. So.
And they don't generally prefer that you do this on a commercial basis.
Correct. Everything is mostly for private, consumption, mostly, or gifting. Those are the big two.
Correct.
Entertainment and gifting.
And you have an age preference?
For my whiskeys, actually, no. For me, it's all about the taste.
All about the
taste.
So walk us through the tasting process. Okay, so you've made your way, you've been introduced, you've gotten through the doors of the office.
Correct.
And you say, I want to buy a cask, and you've given them a heads up. And obviously, there's a tasting process because you're not buying this blind.
Correct. Because I would always tell people never buy anything blind. Always taste it before you buy it.
All right.
And they already know I like Islay, so it's most of the time they give me 2 or 3 different whiskeys of different Isleys, and they kind of lead up to these Casks of Distinctions.
And these are fresh samples, like just
So-
drawn prior to your tasting?
I don't know, because these are samples that are delivered to Singapore, and then they're kept in a bottle. But once they're in a bottle, the taste doesn't change as much, so it's different than wine. So with whiskey, you can just leave it in the bottle and let it sit there, and then you can kind of test it.
Okay, and is it an enjoyable experience? Do you feel any pressure to buy? Is there?
There's no pressure to buy, but if you do find something you like, it can be gone within a week. So this is the one that I decided within a week. By the next week, there was already another buyer that said that they wanted to buy it, but they lost out because I said I don't want it.
So no hard sell whatsoever?
No hard sell, and it was just, if you want it, you get it, and if you don't sign it, or if you don't get it before somebody else, it's first come, first serve. So.
Investment disclaimer, I own no stock in Diageo, but I am thinking about buying more. Buying some. I think we missed a boat on that one, actually.
I know. So,
yeah.
This is the first cask I ever bought. It must have been 3-4 years ago or something like that.
I remember the first time you mentioned it, you were absolutely gleeful. I mean, almost giddily gleeful.
It is one of my favorite casks.
Look at the color on that bottle.
Yeah.
So
I
maybe, CK, if you can bring the camera a little bit closer. So guys, you can see it comes with this beautiful logo that signifies it, in fact, is a cask of distinction. It comes with these normal, beautiful copper plates. You can have it engraved or have your name put on it or anything that has personal significance on it. It will give you, of course, the volume of the bottle, the alcohol, the number of bottles that came out of the cask number, and other relevant date details that go into, sort of careful. So yeah. So these are specific boxes, specific designs made for the Cask of Distinction collection. So if you buy a Cask of Distinction, it actually comes like this.
Yeah.
I have one over here.
So there we go.
Just for comparison, this is Dram Good Stuff's Cask of Distinction. So you can see they're very similar in
And these bottles are very sought after. They're the pinnacle of Diageo's casks and whiskeys, and
and these are crystal bottles, they're not simple glass bottles, and they're quite
sturdy and heavy.
Quite hefty.
They have the Cask of Distinction logo on the back, on the front, even the little
pull tab
string here. So yeah, it's a nice bottle. You can't complain, and the box is nice and heavy as well. And the whole process is very enjoyable. They kind of help you guide through. Like once you pick the liquid and taste different kinds, from the 2 or 3, if you like one of them, then you say yes.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you kind of figure out a bottling date, and kind of they'll suggest you kind of how much you should age it longer, etc. And then you can kind of pick and choose different wordings on your label.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything is pretty much good to go.
Yeah. You can't put anything naughty on the bottle; they frown upon that. All right. So you've gone there. You've chosen the liquid. You've shaken your hand, and it's a done deal. Then what's next? So you give them. So let's say, for example, you're buying something that's 32 years old, but you want a bottle at 35.
Correct.
So you would simply inform them that I have a specific age requirement.
I would just tell them, I'm kind of targeting it for 35.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's in 3 years,
yeah,
I'll probably do. You have the right to take a sample of liquid.
Right.
It's just drawing a bottle.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably take that in the second year, just to see where the progress is, or 1.5, somewhere halfway, because whiskey doesn't mature as quickly as other products.
Okay.
So 1.5 years, I'll probably draw one bottle, just make sure it's on the right path. The alcohol level didn't drop below as much, etc. I kind of.
So that's a big thing to consider as well.
Yes.
So if you're buying a cask that is significantly old, and the alcohol level's already around 42, 41,
anything
then that's
below 45, you should just bottle. I'll be
Yeah.
honest there. But anything like a little higher, then you have age.
And why is that?
For me, it's just a personal preference of tasting the liquids and the complexity and the depth.
So you prefer something a bit more punchy?
Yeah. No, actually, I prefer the 48 to 50%.
Okay.
That's like my
Not
sweet spot.
the 56.5.
No, I'm not on the 55%.
Where you're a little crying as you drink the liquid.
So.
And also, of course, if the alcohol happens to fall below 40%, you can no longer call it whiskey. So it has to be bottled.
Correct.
At least in that area.
And then you tell them, let's say it's 35, right? At
Yeah.
34, about 3 to 6 months beforehand, you
Yeah.
kind of tell them, be like, hey, I want to bottle it, and they'll give you some suggested dates.
Okay.
And with those dates, you pick one, and then within a couple months, they'll ship it over. They'll handle all the duties and everything. You just have to pay the taxes.
All right.
And then
And
you
arrange
get the
your own storage and wherever you want it shipped to. They
Correct.
could ship it anywhere in the world.
They could ship it anywhere in the world, but it would be all from the UK. So you have to tell them beforehand and make sure that the company has certain licenses and etc.
Okay.
But I just shipped mine to Singapore because it's quite easy there. So
Okay.
everything was just shipped to Singapore.
All right.
And then the last thing is just to enjoy it. So
So have you had any unpleasant surprises along the way for?
I mean, I bottled it during COVID around that time,
Yeah.
so it was hard for me to kind of get access to the bottles, and some of the shipment was a bit late. But
Right.
I knew the bottles were safe. There was nothing wrong with it,
Yeah.
etc.
Okay. And so that's the entire Cask of Distinction Diageo process. What about all the people who may not be able to do?
Correct. Because with Diageo, the price includes bottling, the boxes, etc., and anything else. So if you're buying a cask, I haven't yet bought a secondhand cask,
Okay.
but I don't know if you can share a story. But I know that on top of buying the cask, you have to make sure you get the right provenance and the right kind of storage warehouses. And on top of that, once you're ready for bottling, you need to pay bottling fees, find out which type of bottle you want, the corks, the labels, any designer fees that you want on top of the bottle.
So these are all additional to company
additional
to all
costs.
other companies.
Correct.
All right.
Some are additional, some is included in the cost. It just depends on the company.
So have you heard any horror stories for?
It's not horror, but it's just they did not expect the additional cost to be as high as they thought it would.
Okay, so let's go. So let's see. So let's say if it's not a company that's of the repute, I mean not of the repute, but of the of a company that owns so many of its own distilleries, and people who have bought various casks from various distilleries and are sort of doing a sort of a supermarket service. Like we have all of this, come in and choose. You choose your cask, and then so for someone who is doing it like that piecemeal with a broker, right? Let's say you're doing it through a brokerage company, right? So what are the initial charges? Of course, you have to pay for the cask.
Correct.
So the cask cost will obviously go straight to the brokerage company, right? And then onwards to
Storage cost.
So you have ongoing storage cost.
Correct.
You have bottle design cost.
Bottle design.
Bottling
Bottling cost.
cost. Label design.
Label design.
Box.
Box costs. Shipping costs. And duties.
Okay.
Those are duties is a big one, and shipping is more expensive than you think. So
Yeah.
when you ship stuff, you might just want to ship the bottles and then get the boxes elsewhere. That's an easy trick.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, then you have to have some sort of setup when you finally get all the bottles and all the boxes and then put everything in the
it's
right
easy
places.
to just ship bottles in a box versus
So obviously, one would not do that into Hong Kong, given Hong Kong has 100% tax.
yes. That's
So
why
let's say if you live in Hong Kong and you're buying, doing it that way, whether you're buying it through a Taiwan brokerage or a Korean brokerage or a Japanese brokerage or a US brokerage or a UK brokerage, you have to figure out where these two parts are going. So you have the bottle somewhere and the boxes somewhere,
correct.
and then someone has to put on a pair of shorts and t-shirt and
Just combine it.
combine it. All right, and then you have to find a way to bring it back to Hong Kong eventually.
Well, I go back and forth between Singapore and Hong Kong.
So I'm not saying if someone were to do that commercially, then it becomes a lot
I mean,
more
so
challenging.
for me, I don't look at it on a commercial basis, whether I want to drink it or whoever my friends want. Some, yeah.
Okay, and is this exclusive to whiskeys, or do you bottle anything else? Do you have any rum casks or bourbon
I
casks?
only have whiskey casks.
Only whiskey casks.
Yeah.
So you're a whiskey snob.
I'm not a whiskey snob. So I do have the Kawila, so I do want you to try it.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you ready for it?
Can you see the smile on my face? Are you
So
gonna
now-
have some with me?
Yeah, I'll have some.
So this is 23 years old.
23.
So you gave me a whiff, I remember, of this.
Very small, yes, and it was just a sample bottle.
Oh, this is so nice. So okay, out of curiosity, and if you want to decline to answer, I won't take it personally. But out of curiosity, how much would a bottle like this be worth per bottle?
be honest, you taste it and you let me know.
Oh, no, don't do that to me, man. I'm sure whatever I say is going to be a lot less than what you paid for.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you. This is a real privilege.
No, it still makes me happy today.
Hmm? This is just fantastic. It's fantastic.
It's one of the best whiskeys I've ever had.
Oh my god, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
This is really one of the best whiskeys I've ever had.
It
And
takes off
and
all
I've
the boxes.
had a lot.
I know. This is the
Oh
final
my
version.
god.
The one you had has
What's
been
my-
open for about a year, and it was just in a small sample.
So when did you open this bottle?
A week ago. So, what would you price up one of the best whiskeys you've ever had? So that's the
20
hardest question, right?
23-year-old cask of distinction. How many bottles came out?
570.
Oh, you got a good outrun. Damn. So that would have brought down the average cost a bit.
No, it's still expensive, but
I'm 26,000 a bottle.
pretty close.
Yeah. What is it?
It's a bit higher, but I won't say. But it's close.
Close? Okay. Within 10%?
No.
Way more than 10%?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not close then.
But I'll be nice.
It's fantastic. For a 23-year-old, huh?
Yeah, I told you. So that's why whiskeys, it comes in all shapes and sizes. You can find fantastic whiskeys at 10 years old or 23 years old.
No, but now you have to tell me how much.
I don't know.
Okay, later. Let me switch off the video. For a 23-year-old.
And in fact, this one is
I'm underpricing my Planish then.
no. So this one, it's I love the change because you can let it sit for about 5 minutes.
It's gorgeous.
The smoke comes out, and you swirl it again, and the sweetness comes out, and the cherry. You know, there's 3 flavors and notes that's underlying with each other, and it's perfectly balanced.
I love all this cocoa and stuff that's coming out now. It's gorgeous. What's the alcohol by volume on this?
50.1, right?
Mouth coating.
I know.
Oh my god.
So the last.
It's a tremendous whiskey. Congratulations on it.
Thank you.
It's absolutely tremendous.
So this is the first whiskey I've had. So it has a long. I put my own stamp of approval and my name on it. So I think you've seen that, right? So it's only for me. It's going to be very hard to buy it from anybody else unless someone got it through me for a gift. But yeah,
Wow.
it's a special one.
So how many other cask of distinctions do you own?
Got a couple, not too many.
You can see he's very coy with his whiskey information.
I just like to drink. Let's be
So
honest.
generally, do you think you'd add to your collection about a cask or 2 a year? I mean, would that be something that you have in the back of your mind, or now that you have a few, are you done? And until you're done with what you have, would you not revisit
I've
this?
still added a few here and there, like one probably a year, but it takes a while for me to pick because now, since I've tried so many casks, I'm a little more picky.
And like, have you introduced your friends to this? Have you got people interested in single casks?
People are now asking me because, you know, like, oh, Garrett, you bought a single cask before. What's the process like? What type of cask should I go for? I'm like, honestly, you should just drink it before you buy it. And then if you really love it, worst comes to worst, you're just going to drink it, right?
Yeah.
So at least, like, all those little costs won't mean anything as long as you're happy and you feel good about that.
Yeah.
You know, you should never stretch yourself to buy a whiskey or just for investment purposes.
It's so funny you said that because a lot of people, you know, they go to our website and say, but you don't carry this and you don't carry this. Why don't you carry this? And I said, well, everything we carry is stuff
Something
like
I want to drink.
I will drink. So, you know, God forbid anything ever happens, then I can't sell it. You know, like I have thousands and thousands of bottles to, you know, like
So same with
enjoy.
me. Whatever I buy, I usually taste it. Or I mean, sometimes I don't. Like I usually buy one bottle to taste.
Yeah.
But then if I buy extra, then of course, you know, I'll just and whiskey doesn't really go down in value, so that's also a good thing.
Yes, that's true. If you buy it at the right price, I think. I think there's certain, you have to say there's certain whiskeys that are sold at auction with a lot of hype, and people buy them, and then they can't resell them because they didn't buy them to drink it.
Yeah.
And then they can't resell them, and they kind of get stuck. So it's, I think But I think if you're buying something like this, you're buying it from ground zero. You're buying it from the source. You're buying it from the distillery.
You're not worried about anything else.
Yeah,
There's
it's not a
it's not a second-hand market.
Exactly. I mean, it's like buying a Rolex at list, right?
Correct.
It's not going to go below list.
Correct.
So it's a good way to go. And I guess because you buy it directly from the distillery or the distillery representative, the confidence level is also
It's very high.
It's very high.
You know that they maintain their casks and everything else. So
Yeah.
no, I'm very happy with this cask. I can't say anything else more.
Was there anything else you'd like to add on in terms of your experience? Or?
I think that's about it.
That's about it.
I'm just glad you got to enjoy this Dram.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
having me.
No, our pleasure.